1972 and all that. Do we remember, gentlemen? FA Cup final?
Yep, I remember that. Always boring games against Leeds United because we matched each other man for man all the way through, and getting goals was
What was a
very,
Burley
very
centre-half doing in long sleeves in May, Frank?
No, was that me there?
How was you there?
That was George Graham trying a shot. Yeah. George with the thumbs up. We always run with his thumbs up like that, didn't
we? It was always going to be close because obviously you got two of the best teams in the country at the time, and you know, you've got all international players on both teams, and I always thought that probably over the 90 minutes, Frank, I'm probably biased, but I think we probably just did enough to win it.
I don't remember who was a better side, to be perfectly honest, but I just knew it was a close game. Almost every time we played against Leeds, it was very, very tight. A lot of aggravation, both on and off the ball.
But watch, look,
oh, who was that there?
That was Charlie. A little clock he got hold of.
Just before...
This is the goal. This is the goal. Who was that that headed that ball in there?
Where was the centre-half?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm looking for Peter Simpson.
You didn't see it on there, Richard, but the build-up to that, Frank and I were tussling for the ball on the halfway line, and I slipped, and actually Frank, stood on my fingers.
Accident, obviously.
And Frank gave the ball to Alan Ball. He tried to play Charlie George in, and Paul Madeley intercepted it. Paul then gave it to Peter Lorimer. I'm still on the halfway line. I mean, you get 6 studs on your hand, it's a bit sore.
On your neck,
and then Peter Lorimer plays Mick Jones, who's on the right, and I'm thinking, I've got to get in the box here. And Billy Brendan's he's in the box before me.
Here's the goal.
And as Mick's crossed the ball, when he's gone past Bob McNabb, I'm actually thinking, Frank, a right-foot volley, and I fancy my chances. But when it got about 10 yards off me, it started to dip. Yeah. And I thought, it's going to get to me, so he only got a split second to make mine up, and I'd died, and the rest is history, as they say.
And when you trod on his hand that day, Frank, did you also say that's what it feels like, son?
Don't get in a little bit, like, squeeze it right in there.
Because there's one or two who had been on the end of those studs, I think, down the years.
Oh, aye. Clarkey was there, about 5 or 6 of them that could really dish it out in the Leeds team. And, but they were a great side, and saying that, they were a nasty side, kick their grannies they would. But they were a great side. I thought they were the best team of the 70s in the 10 years.
I can see his chest coming out as you're speaking.
He's ready, I'll just give him one.
I'd like you to tell a little story, if I can, about Billy Brendan, our captain. Because over the years, like when I was a little boy growing up in the Midlands, I think the first FA Cup final I ever watched was 1954, I'd be 8 years of age, West Bromwich Albion against Preston. And I always wanted to be a footballer, Frank, as we all did as kids, and I thought I'd love to play in a cup final. Now, I was lucky, Richard, I played in 4 FA Cup finals, but I only won it once. But I always say, we won the big one, the Centenary Cup final. To win any cup final is special, but 100 years of the FA Cup, that was special when the Queen was there to present the trophy to Billy Brendan. Now, over the years, whichever winning captain receives the trophy off the guest of honour, whichever side of Wembley their supporters were, the captain, Frank did it, he would show. Now, I remember Billy showing our supporters, and it was right where we came out the tunnel. It was a massive blue, white and yellow. But other winning captains have handed down the trophy to the teammates. Now, Billy Brendan never did that. Now, about 8 years ago, because Billy's actually been dead 6 years ago, December the 7th, and I think about Billy times a day, and I will to the day I die, because Billy and I weren't just roommates, teammates, we were like brothers. But I mentioned to Billy Brendan 8 years ago, Frank, and it's a lovely story, this. I said, Billy, you know when we won the FA Cup? I said, well, when I've looked back over these, I said, the winning captain normally hands them down to the teammates, but I says, you showed our fans, and then you went down the steps, and I says, we followed him, and Peter Lorimer and I picked him up on our shoulders, and that's where you see all the photographs of us winning the game. But I says, you never, you know, handed it down. He says, Alan, I said, why was that, Billy? He says, Alan, I'm going to tell you something. I'd waited so many years to get my hands on this trophy. He says, I wasn't going to share it with you bastards. What a lovely story. It's a true story. Marvellous story.
Just to emphasise what a good team it was, no reason for showing this other than it's goal from that, well, take your breath away. That from Eddie Gray in a home game here against Burnley, bettered by the goal scored second half. Now this is just fabulous. 1, 2. Albert Johansson on the floor, 3, 4, have another go, and then stick it in. Fantastic. Here he is with Claire Tomlinson.
Eddie, we've just been watching you popping a few goals away. What do you remember of those ones against Burnley?
Well, some things just happen in football. The first one get played to me outside the box, and I just seen the goalkeeper off the line and I just knocked it over him. It was quite simple, really. Second one, I just picked the ball up at the dead ball line. There was a few bodies lying in front of me, including Albert Johansson, our player. I think I must have beat Albert. People think I beat a few opponents, but it was Albert who was going around all the time before I knocked it in. Yeah.
Which one was the best in your opinion?
For me, the one that gave me most satisfaction, the first one. The chip, yeah.
Where's that?
Because I think it was quite well executed.
Whereas everyone else would say dribbling round half a team.
Well, that's what people think, you know, but that was something that I could do, really. It didn't seem much to me at the time, but a lot of people talk about it.
Third round of the FA Cup, special day. You've got some great FA Cup memories, I'm sure, particularly of 1972.
Yeah, we played Arsenal in the Centenary Cup final and we managed to win the game. Great header for Alan Clark that day. And probably the lasting moment, though, is Mick Jones when he dislocated his elbow and trying to go up to the Royal Box to get his medal, you know. But no, they were great days. We had great games against Arsenal in the Cup. I mean, when I was manager here in the 80s, we played Arsenal in the Cup. Then we went to the third game. They won the toss to take it back to Highbury and they beat us 2-1 there. We actually were leading here in extra time and they scored in the last minute of the game, Graham Ricks.
So when
Those were the days, fourth round, third replay. Where were you that day, incidentally, when Eddie did what Eddie did best?
Well, the gaffer actually, he left quite half the team out because on the Wednesday we got a vital European Cup match. So I was sitting in the West End watching the game, and we actually beat them about 4 with half of the reserve team.
Early rotation then.
Well, to be fair to our gaffer, he had a 19-man squad in them days, but he always wanted his best 11 out. And we've actually, every one of us played when we shouldn't have been anywhere near the football ground. But on this particular game, we got this, as I said, this important European match, and he left Billy, John, and Pete Lorimer. And as they stuck half of the reserves in, and they hammered Burnley 4 on that day, and Eddie scored 2 great goals.
Right, let's get up to